I know what we're gonna do today.
With Phineas and Ferb officially back, it's time to rank every character in it from good to evil. Let's begin, like we normally do, with the most pure-hearted characters in the show. These characters are the good. Taking the top spot, we have a pick that might surprise you because he isn't the most major character, but the gold medal of good goes to an ordinary platypus.
Oh, there you are, Perry.
Actually, I'll be real with you guys. The script art didn't really explain why this normal-looking platypus is the most good. He did insist that I should put a fedora on him, though, so I guess I'll...
Perry the platypus? I want to say that I knew it was you all along, but I can't because I didn't.
Well, despite the initial shock of that plot twist, I can't say it surprises me to see Perry at the top of our list again. He's an altruistic, semi-aquatic mammal who manages to juggle life as both a beloved family pet and a heroic secret agent. Perry spends every day either thwarting Dr. Doofenshmirtz or acting as his unofficial therapist. Whatever the situation demands, basically. He cares deeply for the people around him, constantly rescuing civilians from dangerous situations and even saving Doof's life on a few occasions. While it might seem like we should take a few points off for his double life, it's clear that Perry does care about Phineas and Ferb. In Across the Second Dimension, he only revealed his identity when Second Dimension Doofenshmirtz threatens to hurt the boys. But he's genuinely heartbroken to have hurt Phineas's feelings. Being willing to risk the trust of his closest companions for the greater good says a lot about how selfless Perry is. Not to mention that during the school year between seasons 4 and 5, he apparently served as the sole defense force against a giant robot scorpion monster in the desert, not to mention him saving the entire ensemble cast's lives in the season premiere. Perry might have a bit of an attitude at times, but when you're that big of a hero, I argue you've earned the right to be a little sassy. For our silver medalist of good, we have Meep. Look, I know there aren't any surprising picks yet, but I swear they aren't all ranked the same as last time. Meep has now appeared in 3 half-hour specials, and in all of them he plays roughly the same role, an intergalactic security agent who protects all things cute from those who would use their cuteness for evil doing. This most often results in him having scuffles with his arch-nemesis Mitch, and often recruiting the help of his earthling buddies Phineas and Ferb. As for why he's the runner-up to Perry, well, aside from Perry having considerably more on-screen hero time, we have to admit that Meep recruiting a group of admittedly very skilled children to help take down intergalactic threats is a bit questionable. Normally I'd be all like, it's a cartoon, who cares? But this video requires me to overanalyze the Phineas and Ferb plot lines at least a little bit. God, I love my job. Rounding out the top 3, we have Isabella. As a Fireside Girl troop leader and Phineas and Ferb's neighbor, Isabella's probably the guy's most consistent ally. She's like if you put cotton candy and unicorns in a blender and personified the result as a little girl. Isabella gets along with everybody and is constantly giving her time, talents, and connections to whatever scheme Phineas and Ferb are cooking up. Of course, that's partially due to her massive crush on the former, but still, the fact remains that Isabella is constantly helping others, rarely ever expecting anything in return. Without her and the Fireside Girls, Phineas and Ferb would have a way harder time pulling off their inventions. In the episode Isabella and the Temple of Sap, we see how hard she has to work to make her part of the operation happen, keeping her troops' spirits up and even risking her neck to help Phineas and Ferb get the sap they need. The only negative trait Isabella has is her occasional dark side. It rarely makes an appearance, but there are some moments where her impatience with Phineas's obliviousness leads to her acting just a little passive-aggressive. Even this doesn't stop her from encouraging him to keep on creating, though, which earns her even more points. Though we can't forget about that one time she kinda casually threatened Buford for using her catchphrase, like,
Yeah.
Up. We'll talk about it later.
even Buford seemed kind of scared, just how much darkness hides under that little pink bow. In any case, a quick mention of the Fireside Girls is in order. Most of what they do is just whatever Isabella tells them to do. They're always more than happy to help each other and others, though, so they're a consistent force of good for Danville. But as we saw in the episode Lord of the Firesides, they do have the potential for disagreement. Granted, it was all due to Doofenshmirtz's uncooperating nature, so we aren't really taking many points off for that, but it still definitely stands out as an example of their potential for violence. I mean, just disagreeing on a cupcake flavor sent them into an all-out faction war, but it also revealed that they have the potential to start a pretty good metal band. Seriously, when is Gretchen's album dropping? Well, we can talk about that later. For now, it's time to get to the main duo themselves. That's right, without further ado, pull back the curtain for Marty the Rabbit Boy and his musical blender. These two provide the good and occasionally morally questionable people of the tri-state area with beautiful music, and they're always there to pick you up when you're feeling down. Anyway, let's talk about the spiritual successor to musical blender, Ferb Fletcher. Ferb is a man of few words, but many actions, and those actions reveal a pure heart. Ferb is the type of guy who will go along with whatever his buddies want to do, content to use his talents to help them out however he can, not being concerned with taking credit or glory. When Ferb does take center stage, though, he absolutely steals the show. In the episode The Lizard Whisperer, Ferb grows attached to a chameleon named Steve. When Steve grows gigantic and goes missing, the gang is ready to give up until Ferb gives a rousing speech that recruits the entire town to help them out. At least until they learned they were going after a giant lizard. Despite his stoicism, Ferb also has a gentle soul. In fact, he's more in touch with his feelings and those of others than his brother. In the second half of Summer Belongs to You, he offers Isabella a tissue and a listening ear because she's crying over Phineas being distressed over getting off the deserted island. In the episode where the gang plays video games while sick, and lazy in Buford's case, mood, Ferb lets Baljeet win to protect his ego, insisting he didn't do so to boost his ego further. In general, Ferb is just a nice guy who genuinely enjoys helping people, though he does seem to have a few darker impulses. In the episode where the boys reunite Love Handle, Ferb prepares to threaten Bobby Fabulous with a mace when he suspected he wasn't willing to appear at their parents' anniversary. In general though, Ferb's patient, always listening when Phineas or someone else tells him to back off, so we can't dock a ton of points for that little instance. And sticking with his bro toward the top is Phineas Flynn. First things first, I don't know about anyone else, but Phineas is so much funnier than I remember him being as a kid. Something about this dude being simultaneously the most emotionally tone-deaf creature in existence and one of the nicest kids you'll ever meet just hits a different level of comedy few other cartoons have reached.
Do I know romance or what?
What?
His lack of emotional awareness is the main reason he lands lower than the previous few characters, because while he does so unintentionally, he causes a lot of turmoil for Candace and Isabella, albeit for very different reasons. He can also be reckless with his inventions at times, which has definitely put the gang in danger a few times. That said, Phineas is still a great kid overall, always putting others above himself. Whether his inventions are harmless, albeit gigantic fun, or straight up death traps, he always makes them with the intent of having a good time and helping others do the same. A lot of his and Ferb's activities come from a desire to help friends and family with their problems, or even just to make their day better. While this may have varying degrees of success, Phineas always means well. Finally, even his obliviousness has a good side. While Phineas is often ignorant of others' feelings, he rarely loses his cool. Aside from a few reasonable lash-outs at Candace, he can get along with just about anyone, from social outcasts to grouchy sisters to undercover interns. Heck, one of his best friends literally started off as his bully. If that doesn't prove this kid's conflict-solving skills, I don't know what does. Now, it'll be a bit longer before we get to the Candace we all know, but second dimension Candace should be able to tide you over until then. Just like her first dimension counterpart, this Candace is tenacious and stubborn to the bitter end. The difference is that rather than just trying to tattle on her brothers, 2D Candace is actively fighting against the tyrannical regime of second dimension Doofenshmirtz, making sure to protect her little brothers from it above all costs.
I'll do whatever it takes to protect the ones I love.
She can definitely be ruthless at times, but with how high the stakes are in her world, we can't blame her too much, really. If anything, that makes her all the more admirable. Look out, here he comes, Dr. Coconut. Carl, you saw nothing. Jokes and whatever that was aside, Carl is Major Monogram's unpaid intern at Auka, but he's more than just an intern. He's also a friendly guy, for one thing. In one episode, when he went undercover to spy on Phineas and the gang, he quickly fit into their friend group and had a good time. In the season 5 episode, More Than an Intern, we also found out that Carl has no less than 3 part-time jobs to pay his rent outside of Auka, and still finds the time to assist Monogram at the agency whenever he's called on. In this episode alone, he straight up saved Agent P's life when he was about to fall off a building, and in doing so, he risked his own neck and livelihood. Carl is a good-natured, hard-working guy. We just hope he remembers to take care of himself. Maybe he needs to just dim the lights, close the curtains, and dance in a coconut bra, and I've said too much! From one Auka MVP to another, next is Major Monogram's son, Monty Monogram. With a combination of his father's dreams of becoming an acrobat to his own dreams of fighting evil, Monty has one of the most fierce fighting styles in Auka's history, and he uses it for good throughout his appearances. One of his most impressive appearances was in Phineas and Ferb Save Summer, in which he encourages Carl to stay strong under the pressure of being thrust into a leadership role, ultimately helping him, Perry, and Doofenshmirtz stop Rodney from plunging the Earth into another ice age. Monty seems like a nice guy all around, from his hero work to his time as a romantic interest of Vanessa's. It's a shame he has Ferb as his companion, because some guys just can't be beat. A love interest who had a bit more luck was Jeremy Johnson. Jeremy is the object of Candace's obsession. Affection? Okay, no, I meant obsession, actually. Thankfully, though, the feeling is mutual. Jeremy's the type of dude who just rolls with whatever's going on. From Candace's obsessive crush to whatever the neighbor kids are inventing that day, he's always nice to people. He's a caring older brother to Susie, a polite employee of Slushy Dog, and a guy who tries to keep the peace wherever he goes. Even in Jeremy's worst appearance, when he was willing to cheat to win a dance competition, he only did so because of how much Candace wanted to win, and even then, he came clean in the end because of his conscience. When such a nice guy has like 9 characters ahead of him, you can tell this series is a pretty wholesome cast. Following him is another member of Candace's inner circle, Stacy Hirano. Being Candace's best friend has got to be exhausting, but Stacy handles it pretty well. She's always there to support Candace in whatever she wants to do, from helping bust the boys to providing emotional support when she's spiraling about something. Her good nature goes beyond her friendship with Candace, though. Like Jeremy, Stacy also tends to get along with the younger kids pretty well. When Candace tried to recruit her to bust them for their giant mini golf course, she lost focus and ended up having a good time playing with the gang. Heck, she's even an ally to Auka. After discovering Perry's secret, she keeps it under wraps, and in season 5, she even came in clutch to save his life from Love Muffin's hippo-themed death trap. The worst we could say about Stacy is that she sometimes enables Candace's busting fixation a little too much.
I am now her eyes, ears, and mouth. Basically, I'm her whole face.
But honestly, when your worst trait is being too loyal to a friend, we can't take a lot of points away from your record. Baljeet Jinder is up next, and I'm sure he'll be relieved to know that he isn't losing a lot of points either. Baljeet ranks a little lower than Phineas, Ferb, and Isabella, primarily because he does have a bit of an ego at times, most memorably seen in The Baljeetles, where he famously went full-on hard rock after finding out he wouldn't be graded on his assignment. But when Baljeet loses his cool, he can lash out pretty hard, and granted, that's how most people are when it comes down to it.
If it means anything, I'd give you an A+ in rock.
No, that means almost nothing.
But Baljeet is capable of moving into full-on supervillain territory when he's given enough of an influence, like in Cranius Maximus, where Phineas and Ferb's invention increased his intellect to a point where Baljeet was smart enough to threaten all of human life just because he saw himself as above them. Like the Fireside Girls, we won't take a ton of points away from him for that, since his actions were mainly due to the influence of the invention, but considering how large the scale of his plan was, we still have to acknowledge that Baljeet definitely has the potential for evil.
Boy, you tried to eliminate the atmosphere one time.
Next, we have the iconic 80s synth musician Max Modem, but for today, we'll call him Lawrence Flynn Fletcher. Unlike Linda, who inexplicably never sees Phineas and Ferb's inventions, Lawrence is fully aware of his boys' capacity for brilliant inventing. The catch is that unlike Candace or Linda, he doesn't really mind it. In fact, he seems to genuinely enjoy their inventions, from helping Candace learn to parallel park in a monster truck arena to enjoying the swanky new bookcase they make for him in season 5. The worst we could say about Lawrence is the same kind of stuff we could say about any other TV dad. Like, wow, he forgot his wife's anniversary one time? Join the club with like every other cartoon father in existence. It's still not good, but with the kids' help, he's certainly made up for it. He's willing to go all out for Linda. In the aforementioned Max Modem episode, he invented his own pop star identity with the kids' help just so he'd still be cool enough for her. Lawrence is a catch. Speaking of which, you guys want to hear some of his fishing stories? Now, they start back in the year of Charlene Doofenshmirtz isn't the most major character, but we felt the need to mention her regardless. When you hear divorce, you think about bitter grudges and hurt feelings. With Charlene and Heinz, that's not the case at all. They literally just wanted different things in life and don't seem to hold any ill will towards each other. In fact, they seem to still be close friends, as evidenced by Charlene frequently defending Heinz from Vanessa's accusations of him being evil.
Your father is not evil. We just didn't get along.
Ironically, despite Vanessa being right on the surface level, Charlene was technically even more right, since Doof ended up being a good guy by the end of the series and had a way bigger heart than he let on at first. For seeing the good in her ex-husband and being a generally good mother herself, we give Charlene a lot of points. Sneaking their way right into the next spot is Love Handle, a band that makes many appearances throughout the series. Most famously, these two are responsible for the love between Linda and Lawrence, and in Dude, We're Getting the Band Back Together, they help the pair rekindle their romance by getting back together and performing as an anniversary present. The worst we could say about Love Handle is that they can be a bit egotistical at times, particularly Bobby, but in the end, they're pretty down to earth and kind people, as far as celebrities go at least. Another multiple person entry, Clyde and Betty Jo Flynn are up next. These two are the grandparents to Phineas and Ferb, and like all good grandparents, their roles generally center around having fun with their grandkids and the rest of the family. They don't really have any overtly bad traits aside from those typical of older folk, from petty grudges to occasional obliviousness. I guess Reginald and Winifred Fletcher fall into the same category, but there's really even less moral debates to go on there. We're nearing the end of our purely good section, so let's talk about Peter the Panda. Peter might be best remembered as the homewrecker from It's About Time, who acted as Doofenshmirtz's side nemesis. Unlike Perry, Peter didn't have a lot of patience for Doof's antics. Instead of listening to his backstory, he would take the opportunity of his rival's monologue to disable his innator, deeply hurting Doof's feelings. While this shows that Peter isn't as sensitive as Perry, it still isn't fully evil since Peter was just doing his job. Later, he tries to make amends with Doof and Perry, despite how badly things ended last time. Most notably in Meeples in Seattle, Peter meets up with Doof at a coffee shop and tries to buy him a coffee, ultimately helping the gang save Doof and take down Mitch. Later on, we find out there might be a reason Peter goes straight to the thwarting part. His own nemesis, Professor Mystery, never gives him a backstory or even a rundown of his evil schemes. After Doof helped him overcome his communication problems, Mystery began communicating with Peter more, which will hopefully allow these frenemies to start a more wholesome love-hate relationship. Tack on all his heroic deeds with the Auka, and you have a character with a way better track record than we went into this video expecting. Rounding out our fully good characters, we have Linda Flynn Fletcher. On the surface, Linda is a perfectly kind woman. She's supportive of her husband and children and their interests, loving them unconditionally through thick and thin. in. She's also generally kind to others, having a healthy amount of friendships and a genuine sense of respect towards her fans from her pop star days. So why is she so relatively low? Well, first things first, we're giving Linda the Darwin Sinner Medal, and it's not because she's stupid or anything, it's because she's ignorant. Like, okay, Candace can be petty sometimes, but you'd think that her calling her mother every single day about her brother's antics would make Linda more observant of her kids' behavior a little bit, right? Well, as it stands, Linda has basically no trust in her own daughter, and while Candace is terribly unlucky at times, resulting in there never being direct evidence for Linda to see, her lack of any further analysis shows how non-seriously she sees her daughter's anxiety, which is clearly a big issue for her. Thankfully, in the revival, while Linda's still painfully ignorant, she at least has Candace going to a therapist and is genuinely happy to see any progress she makes. It's clear that however seriously she takes or doesn't take her daughter, she does genuinely love her. In one of the time travel episodes, when Linda discovers Candace was telling the truth all along, she sincerely apologizes for not believing her, proving that, again, she isn't evil, just ignorant. Her strong sense of familial love is just enough to keep Linda in the good section. Now let's move into the characters with the more inconsistent moral compass. This is the gray area. Let's begin with one of the many characters we were way too hard on last time, Buford Van Stom. While Buford was introduced as a standard bully, he quickly became one of Phineas and Ferb's best friends. Throughout season 1, he goes from a one-note antagonist to a more multifaceted character. First off, Buford only started bullying others because his only friend, a goldfish named Biff, was nearly eaten by a bigger kid, so Buford's bullying it's literally just a defense mechanism. Once he starts trusting Phineas, Ferb, and the other kids, his bullying tendencies slowly take a back seat. While he still consistently hassles Baljeet, it's made clear that it's just how they show affection to each other, seeing how they both unambiguously like each other. He's even got a code of honor that he lives by, becoming Baljeet's loyal servant after he saves his life.
I will empty my mind of all thought except for Baljeet. There, that was easy.
Until Buford repays the debt, that is. He's honest even when he is a bully, but he does become much nicer over the course of the series. By the point of the revival, Buford really isn't even a bully anymore. He's just the one friend who's tough and kind of weird. He's always happy to help his friends. From faking a life or death situation to help Baljeet hone his acting skills, to using his inexplicable wax molds of his friends to help Candace with her busting experiment. Again, 2 nickels.
Why you have a life-size mold of Candace?
I got life-size molds of all my friends.
I'm not so sure how I feel about that.
To, for some reason, being in charge of the schedules of Baljeet and Phineas and Ferb's mother, Buford is an absolute mystery.
Want to see what I got behind my ear? It's another ear.
Mind flip.
But he certainly isn't just a bully. He's a kid who needed friends to make him feel safe enough to soften up a little bit. Oh yeah, and we'd be remiss if we didn't give him the Gluttony Sinner Medal. This guy just really wants that bread bowl hot tub. But not nearly as much as Candace Flynn wants to bust her brothers. Like with Buford, we were way too hard on poor Candace last time around, but she is in the gray area, so I guess we should start with the bad traits she has.
Your true teen identity is actually the busting and crush-obsessed older sister type.
Candace is one of the main antagonists of the series, and that's for a good reason. No matter what Phineas and Ferb are doing, Candace is determined to bust them. On the surface, this makes her seem incredibly petty and mean-spirited, and at times, she certainly can be. But a closer look at her actions reveals that she isn't just a one-note antagonist. Think about it. Linda never believes Candace about what Phineas and Ferb are up to. If you were trying to convince your own mother that you weren't a mentally unstable liar, and rather a mentally unstable person telling the truth, wouldn't you maybe go a bit overboard sometimes as well? What's more, Candace has often given up deliberate chances to bust her brothers for the sake of doing what's right. In the episode where she becomes a lifeguard, she has evidence of the lake nose monster, but after seeing how sad Phineas and Ferb are, she realizes they were only trying to protect her, and she throws the evidence away entirely.
We're proud of you, sis.
In Meeples in Seattle, she sacrifices her phone, which was full of recordings of the guys' shenanigans, to stop Mitch from escaping. And in the season 5 premiere alone, she helps the kids rescue Linda from being evaporated into mist.
Wow, huge turn there.
Candace is also devoted to her friends and boyfriend. While she sometimes puts them on the back burner for the sake of her busting endeavors, she always makes up for it in the end. Oh yeah, Lust Sinner Medal, by the way, I don't think we even need to explain that one. The long and short of it is that Candace has a lot more good than bad. It's easy to see her on the surface as a bratty, petty teenager, but while she has tendencies that run in that direction, they don't take away from all the good that she's done throughout the series. And who doesn't accidentally tear apart the space-time continuum now and then? Am I right? Following Candace is another teenage girl with a penchant for busting. Vanessa Doofenshmirtz. Dr. Doofenshmirtz's daughter is a goth teenager with most of the traits that come with that. She's constantly embarrassed by her parents, sometimes behaves superficially, normal teenage girl stuff. What's not normal is dealing with the antics of her evil scientist dad, trying to tell her well-meaning yet ignorant mother what's really going on behind the scenes, etc. She's always looking out for him, and in the last episode before the revival, we found out why that is. She realized before Doof himself that his evil wasn't really something he wanted to do, but rather his way of coping with the abuse he'd suffered throughout his life. These words were what started Doof's slow, steady journey away from evil and into the world of do-gooding, which gives Vanessa a lot of points as a good daughter. That said, we have to take points away from her for that one time she snatched a doll from a little girl. Yes, we know that doll was a present from her dad, but as far as the kid was concerned, it was just a doll her mother bought her fair and square. Sentimental stuff aside, that's a pretty messed up mark on an otherwise clean record. Next up, we have the self-proclaimed biggest fan of Phineas and Ferb, Irving.
I'm Irving. I'm your biggest fan.
Okay, while self-proclaimed is objectively true, I think he's earned the title. Irving literally just shows up sometimes. He isn't particularly close with the other kids and seems to just tag along uninvited to places. His obsession with the boys and lack of boundaries is definitely a bit unsettling, but they're both understandable considering he's a kid. He's always down to help the gang with their adventures and seems to just want a bit of attention and inclusion. As weird and creepy as he can be, Irving isn't a bad kid. He just, I don't know, I think he needs a hug, man. I can't believe our scriptwriter just left an empty spot on this script. What did he think a viable entry would just fall out of the sky? Oh, it's on the next page. The farmer and his wife are probably the closest thing to fully neutral people this series has to offer. In every appearance they have, the farmer makes some kind of impulsive, lifestyle-altering purchase to try and start a new business, followed by his wife rightfully being ticked off about it, only for whatever they need to just fall out of the sky. Maybe this is just a ritual for them at this point, but it's no doubt put some kind of strain between them. That one scene where the farmer sadly says,
You've never believed in me.
That felt too real. He said that from his soul. Please buy some couples counseling sessions next. Then we have I'm sorry, is that a giant floating baby head? He floats. He's a baby head. I guess neither of those are bad things, right? Can we move on? He's starting to creep me out. Let's look at a slightly less unsettling floaty thing, Balloony. Doofenshmirtz's childhood best friend is a balloon with a disturbingly realistic human face drawn on it. They used it to spend every day together until one day Balloony floated away. He ended up being taken in by Meep's arch nemesis Mitch as a servant, betraying his old friend in the process. But don't worry, he found redemption in the second Meep episode where he decided to swap sides at the last second, saving Doofenshmirtz's life from some of Mitch's robot soldiers and almost dying in the process. Side note, man, I love this show. I just read a whole character analysis written on a balloon who isn't even consistently sentient. Let's move on to another fully sentient character, Albert. Albert is Irving's older brother and basically the kind of guy who gets all of his social skills from Reddit. But whenever he appears, he's either teasing his brother for having different interests or desperately pledging to help random girls in the hopes they'll notice him.
I gave her my nerd word.
In the episode Nerds of a Feather, Albert starts a war against Irving at a convention, endangering children all over the venue just because they like a different movie genre. He's not a monster by any means, but he doesn't have a lot of outright good qualities, so we had to put him pretty low. Surprisingly, landing on the lower end of the gray area is the head of the Auca, Major Francis Monogram. Monogram deserves a lot of credit right off the bat for his general goodwill towards humanity. It's thanks to the Auca's hardworking agents that the inexplicably high number of evil scientists in this universe haven't taken over absolutely everything, and we have to tip our hats to him for that. Unfortunately, where we can't give him a lot of points is in the treatment of his workers. For one thing, he consistently teases Carl, ranging from passive jabs to direct insults. Even though Carl is an unpaid intern, Monogram rarely appreciates him properly.
Pedal faster. Gotta check my email.
In the episode More Than an Intern, he regularly gives him orders outside of his working hours, despite Carl working 3 part-time jobs to make ends meet. Monogram doesn't even believe Carl until Carl delivers his pizza to him. And while he does make up with him after realizing how hard-working Carl truly is, it reveals that, in general, Monogram tends to take a lot more than he gives from the people around him. The Greed Sinner Medal is his for the sheer fact that he took until that very episode we mentioned earlier to even validate Agent P's parking. And on top of that, he constantly refuses to give Agent P time off, often calling him in while he's sleeping or on vacation. I know evil never rests, but your agents need to, dude. His heart may be more mechanical than most, but Norm isn't anywhere near fully cold-hearted. On the contrary, he's just, well, he's a robot. It's not that Norm doesn't do much, it's that he doesn't do much of his own volition. Pretty much all of Norm's actions are done with the intent of carrying out Doofenshmirtz's orders, which just happen to often involve trying to take over the tri-state area. He is capable of throwing shade when he's in the mood though, so there's that. But it's worth noting that Norm, for all of his faults, is fiercely loyal to his master. Even after Doofenshmirtz routinely insults and demeans him, he's still willing to help him out in a pinch when the need arises. Now that Doof has gone good, we have a feeling that Norm is going to follow suit. Speaking of which, alright, now it's time for the moment everyone's been waiting for. It's time to talk about the not evil scientist, but the morally gray scientist himself, Heinz Doofenshmirtz. Doofenshmirtz needs no introduction. He absolutely steals every scene he's in, from his comically tragic backstories to his ruthlessly petty innators. Doof is constantly scheming to cause a ruckus with his inventions, varying from revenge schemes as petty as insulting a whale for stealing his girlfriend,
I've just insulted the macaroni and cheese recipe of a whale!
to plans as inadvertently dangerous as vaporizing anything that displeases him on any level, or, of course, trying to take over the tri-state area!
Yes.
Simply put, the doof wants what it wants. It just happens that his methods put people in constant danger. Thankfully, Doofenshmirtz has a lot more good than bad in his heart. His daughter Vanessa puts it best. Doofenshmirtz is a nice guy pretending to be bad. His inventions are almost never intended to cause actual harm to others. They're just done to either settle the score with someone who's wronged him or to make his life more convenient. He has lines he won't cross. In Phineas and Ferb Save Summer, Doof turns his back on the other members of Love Muffin when they threaten to send the world into an ice age, ultimately helping to encourage Major Monogram and take down the truly evil scientists once and for all. Doof isn't just not evil, he's genuinely a caring guy. He has a healthy friendship with Perry the Platypus, often venting about his traumas and having a legitimately fun time with their thwart sessions. That's not to mention him doing his best as a father to Vanessa, often going overboard to ensure that she has a better childhood than he did. I mean, it doesn't really take much to have a better childhood than Doof, but still, it's clear that Doof, deep down, is motivated by the people he loves the most. Even in the revival, when Doofenshmirtz returns to his evil-ish ways, he still stands out as a decent guy. When he helps fellow scientist Dr. Diminutive capture Perry, he is horrified when Perry is put in a death trap, ultimately helping Stacy rescue Perry from it, and even apologizing to his nemesis. In the new Meep special, he doesn't just save Balloony and Perry from some of Mitch's soldiers, he directly calls Perry his friend.
Still here. Okay, clownbots, let's try fighting to save my friends maniacally.
You can run from it all you want, Doof, but that kind heart of yours is gonna catch up eventually. Out of sheer respect, though, we'll give Doofenshmirtz the Wrath Center Medal, because frankly, anyone with such specific grudges against others truly deserves the honor. And we aren't done with the Doofenshmirtz family. Next up is Bubba Doofenshmirtz, Heinz's cousin. He's a new running joke character introduced in season 5. At least, I hope he comes back. This guy was hilarious. Just hearing Doofenshmirtz speak in a southern accent is hilarious itself.
Behold, my Beavernator!
While Bubba isn't a model citizen by any means, as he takes a little too much pleasure in cooking up that there shitty duck, he was polite enough to offer some to his guests, Major Monogram and Carl. Bubba is gunning to take over the Tri-Swamp area, which makes him about as not really threatening as Heinz. But unlike Heinz, we don't really know if there's more to Bubba yet, so until his hopeful return, we'll keep him on the lower end of our middle category. And to round out the gray area, we have Doof's brother, Roger Doofenshmirtz. I think this has been a really fun gray area. We started out with two characters we were too hard on last time around, and we end with a character we were way too easy on. Let's get one thing out of the way. We aren't going to blame Roger for the fact that his parents favored him. We are, however, going to blame him for the way he disregards his own brother as a full-grown adult. As mayor of Danville, Roger could help his brother a lot more than he actually does, whether that would be arresting him for his crimes or even just getting help for him to keep him from committing them in the first place. But instead, the only times we even really see Roger and Heinz interact at all are when the former needs someone to take the fall for some bad PR. In The Beak, when Caca Poo Poo attacked Danville, Roger proved he was a coward by abandoning office and leaving Doof to take the heat. The only exception to the rule of Roger being a selfish coward was the time he used city funding to fix a painting of Heinz's that he accidentally stained, and even then, he used city funding for it, which I'm pretty sure is embezzlement.
Well, that was 20 years well spent. Melanie, what's my next appointment?
But while Roger is a jerk, he isn't quite unambiguously evil, and there's no denying that his bad tendencies are mostly due to his parents' spoiling and favoritism of him. With that, we move into the final category, reserved for only the most heinous villains in Phineas and Ferb, which there aren't a ton of, but trust me, there are some. These are the bad to evil. Dink Winkerson, here to take the first spot in our final category. While he may seem like a regular news reporter on the surface in his return in season 5, which, I'll be real, I completely forgot he existed until then, he's revealed to be the infamous mom mugger, which basically is, wait, I'm not explaining it. It's in the name. He mugs moms. That's bad. You know what else is bad? Naming your child Caca Poo Poo. As if having such an unfortunate name weren't bad enough, Caca Poo Poo apparently has some pretty terrible luck, having never had a single good day in his life, which, considering the fact that he's married, really makes you wonder why he's married.
Are you in there complaining again about never having a good day in your life?
Like, even if his wedding day wasn't happy, what gives? It's hard to blame a miserable person for lashing out at the world, that is, until they start making giant robots to terrorize innocent people. And while we don't mean to victim blame here, I can't help but feel like maybe he's just making his life worse by staying with a woman who nags and throws chairs at him 24/7? I don't know, just a thought.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have, okay, can you move the camera a little lower? Yeah, okay, there we go. Dr. Diminutive, one of Doofenshmirtz's peers from Love Muffin. We mention him out of all of his other peers because he's one of the the ones we've seen the most of, and it's not all just short jokes, just mostly short jokes. Personally, I'd be going after his Ben Shapiro-esque voice, but that's just me. In any case, Diminutive is like all the other members of Love Muffin in terms of him being an actually evil scientist to point out how non-evil Doofenshmirtz really is. We saw this particularly in the episode Agent T for Teen, where he helped Doofenshmirtz capture Perry only to, unbeknownst to Doof himself, lure Perry into a death trap to be mauled by hippos. Yeah, not sharks, hippos.
Actually, hippos are much more dangerous.
He was willing to sacrifice presentation points just because hippos were statistically more dangerous. That is dedication to the craft. Landing just outside of our bottom 5 is Jeremy's sister, little Susie Johnson. Really, even that might be underselling this little demon child. She may put on an innocent face when Jeremy's around, but Susie is not a good kid. She's determined to keep Jeremy for herself by whatever means necessary, constantly sabotaging Candace with whatever screwed up schemes she can think of. This ranges from ruining her outfits to having dogs bite her to even getting squirrels to crawl down her pants at the park. We were thinking about cutting her some slack for her age and the fact that, in her own words, Susie considers herself off the clock when Jeremy isn't around, meaning she won't torture Candace if he won't be there to see it. But then we remembered her casually revealing that her schemes to keep his attention on her are just to manipulate him into doing whatever she wants. Either way, the Envy Center medal definitely belongs to Susie. She may be little, but she's manipulative and ruthless enough to land pretty low on our list. I mean, did you see how horrified Buford was at the mere thought of her? Wash away the horror, wash away the horror. The arch nemesis of Meep, Mitch, is up next. This guy was our gold medalist last time around, but needless to say, we forgot about a couple of baddies. That's not to say that our views on Mitch have changed, though. This guy makes a living off of poaching aliens from other galaxies, which is already messed up on its own. But then you have the fact that he also has ambitions to take over the universe using the power of cuteness, and he's come terrifyingly close at times. He also isn't above threatening to kill his henchmen for disagreeing with him, or even just asking too many questions. We don't really have any outright good things to say about Mitch. He just isn't as horrible as the last few characters. Now, this next guy technically shouldn't count since he only appeared as part of a dream, but we had to mention the drill sergeant from Phineas and Ferb Get Busted. Not only was this one of the more memorable specials in the series' history, it also introduced one of its most terrifying villains, a drill sergeant whose entire goal is to squeeze every last drop of creativity out of children to ensure they don't cause trouble for their parents. In simple terms, the guy literally tortures kids, holding their eyes open to force them to watch propaganda, putting them in solitary confinement for non-conforming behavior, and just generally being an abusive piece of garbage, taking pride in destroying the joy and innocence of childhood.
You've done a great job of turning them into, that.
Yes. Yes, we have.
Ranges somewhere around the most evil thing you could do. And honestly, if this dude were actually real in universe, we'd have a harder time placing him anywhere but at the #1 most evil spot. Regardless, the last 3 villains who actually do exist outside of dream sequences deserve a bit more credit if you ask us. For our bronze medal of evil, we have Alois von Rodenstein. Just call him Rodney though, that's easier. And after what he got arrested for, you won't hear him complaining about it anytime soon. While there initially isn't much to separate Rodney from the other members of Love Muffin, aside from his funny voice, make no mistake, this guy is more threatening than Doof could ever dream of being. And don't worry, it's not a compliment. In Phineas and Ferb Save Summer, when Doof tries to move the Earth farther from the sun so his sunscreen will work, Love Muffin decides to use the resulting weather change to their advantage. In particular, Rodney decides to give the people an ultimatum. Either they meet their demands, or he'll send the world into another ice age. Now, the world leaders meet all of the villains' demands within, like, a day, except for Pretzels, because of their failure to deliver pretzels, though. Rodney decided it was time to send the Earth far enough away to doom humanity to another ice age.
No pretzels! No deal!
Now, I know what you're thinking, what motive could Rodney possibly have for doing this, knowing full well that it would kill him and his allies too? Well, that got nothing. Some men just want to watch the world burn, or freeze in this case. But remember when I said Rodney was more heinous than Doof could ever dream of being? You should, because it was like a minute ago. Either way, we were mistaken, because second dimension Heinz Doofenshmirtz takes the silver medal of evil. 2D Doof lost his beloved toy train as a child, which sent him spiraling into a descent of sheer unadulterated evil.
That's it?
This Doof didn't just manage to take over the tri-state area, he kept an iron-fisted, fear-based rule over them for years, where people lived in constant terror over his power. He isn't above hurting children to reach his goals either, but at least he isn't all bad, since even this Doof has a close friendship with Perry. It just took him defeating Perry and transforming into a cyborg literally built to serve him.
He was once my nemesis, but now he is general of my army!
Which honestly is actually worse than outright killing him would have been, so never mind. Now, I know what you're thinking, or you might not, because it's a very very specific thought. But in the episode Phineas and Ferb's Quantum Boogaloo, we see an alternate future where Doof actually takes over the tri-state area, making it so everything has to do with him by law. But while this was evil for sure, even then most of Doof's decrees were just petty and silly, like naming everyone Joe so he wouldn't have to remember so many names. 2D Doofenshmirtz, on the other hand, straight up has people killed, lobotomized, or otherwise brutalized for the slightest infractions. This guy is Doofenshmirtz with almost none of the sympathy and 10 times the evil, but at least he was willing to relent once he got his choo-choo back. But whatever you think about the Doofenshmirtzes, I think we can all agree on one thing. Doofenshmirtz's parents can go get shot by the Step-on-a-Lego-inator. Seriously, there's absolutely no ambiguity here. Even with all the various world-threatening villains we see throughout the series, there was never a single moment where we seriously doubted their placement. Doof's parents are so evil that they give their own son a different backstory for like every week. From forcing him to stand outside in all kinds of weather dressed as a lawn gnome, to showing clear favoritism towards his brother, to demeaning and humiliating Doof. Heck, they didn't even show up to his birth. These two are such horrid parents that they broke the laws of nature itself just to neglect their son. Just about everything Doof's parents did caused him absolute misery. What's worse is that all of Doof's attempts to win their hearts fell flat. Take the time he spent his only money on a teddy bear from the Claw Machine District. When he proudly presented it to his mother, she, in front of him, mind you, gave it as a gift to Roger. Look, I guess you could argue that they loved Roger since he was a prodigy and all, but that doesn't make any difference to us. The fact is that they emotionally abused, neglected, and downright endangered their son constantly throughout his childhood, to the point where he had to be raised by ocelots at one point. That's something we can't even begin to defend. And no, Mrs. Doofenshmirtz, he's bad at kickball is not an excuse to neglect your son. Everyone else we've discussed in this category is either some level of crazy or had some redeeming qualities, but these two are rotten to the core, and we have no qualms giving them the gold medal of evil. You two are the schnitzels, Doof's parents. Shame on you.
In Phineas and Ferb, it's hard to find many people who hate each other. Many characters instead become friends. Even being someone's nemesis or bully can barely warrant that much animosity. It's one of the few shows to show step-siblings in a positive light, without there being a warming up period, to the point where some audience members don't even realize that they're stepbrothers. Simply put, this cartoon has a lot of great relationships. Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Phineas and Ferb Relationships, Healthy to Healthiest. This series has a large cast, so obviously there's gonna be a lot of character combos, way too many for one video. For now, we're gonna focus on the relationship that we either see the most or the ones that have interesting dynamics. Additionally, we're going to ignore the romantic relationships and instead going to focus on familial relationships and friendships. With that said, let's get started. As always, we're gonna start with our least healthiest relationships and work our way up to the most healthy. First, we have the not-so-close brotherhood between Doofenshmirtz and Roger. Obviously, when you have parents that play favorites with their kids, you're gonna get a lot of friction between the kids themselves, and this is certainly the case with Doof and Roger. With one being more successful, it's easy to get the vibe that Roger enjoys rubbing his status in his older brother's face, not being too sympathetic to the difficulties that Doof faced being the black sheep of the family. You can't blame Doof for wanting to get petty revenge, with most of his schemes revolving around getting back at Roger. One thing we should point out is that while Doof usually tries to either steal the tri-state area or humiliate him, he doesn't really try to kill or even seriously hurt Roger. It makes you wonder if he actually has a soft side for his younger brother, something that he doesn't even realize. Roger sometimes can show grace towards Doof, like the time where he actually restored a painting of Doof's that he'd accidentally destroyed, and is occasionally regretful of his actions. It's still not a great relationship, but there's enough to make us wonder if there's a chance of it improving. Next is Norm and Doofenshmirtz. While many consider him to be a good dad when it comes to his daughter, Doof drops the ball when it comes to Norm. In the episodes where Norm makes it clear that he sees Doof as an actual father instead of a creator or boss, Doof brushes him off, not giving him much respect or love in return. That's not to say that Doof is too terrible to Norm. They still have their moments, and Doof still shows occasional support, like when he's helping Norm win over a lady robot. It's a case where things could be better between them, but at the same time, there aren't too many red flags. We just wish Doof was nicer towards Norm, instead of only seeing him as another robot. Now we have Major Monogram and Carl. Professional relationships can be complicated, especially when you're dealing with someone as stern or as oblivious as Monogram. Although they work together well, there have been instances where Carl has wanted a little more appreciation from his boss, to the point where he and Monogram's son, Monty, make a scheme of just trying to get Monogram to tell the intern thank you. What makes this more frustrating is that, for the most part, Monogram isn't acting maliciously. He's just very work-focused, and that sometimes involves putting extra work on Carl without giving anything in return for it. Thankfully, when someone actually points out Monogram's mistakes, he tries to make up for it in small small ways. We also see how protective Monogram is of Carl when he sends him to go undercover to figure out whether or not Phineas and Ferb are working for the enemy. The moment that he thinks Carl's in danger, Monogram goes out of his way to rescue him. It's these little moments that make us understand why Carl is still willing to work for him, even if he doesn't get paid. Now we have Baljeet and Buford. For the first season or two, this bully and nerd pair were just, well, a bully and nerd. Buford would mess with Baljeet, Baljeet would be afraid of him, and it was just treated like a cliche joke. Over time, they formed a bond, becoming more friends than enemies. Even if Buford still bullied Baljeet, they help each other, look out for each other, and care about each other, as seen in the episode Bully Bromance Breakup. Despite all their massive differences, they may squabble, and the whole bullying thing is still off-putting, hence why their relationship is still fairly low on the list. But we'll acknowledge that it's still a dynamic that clearly works for them, so who are we to judge? Next is Doofenshmirtz and Vanessa. In all honesty, one of the most satisfying parts of this series was seeing how Doof and Vanessa's bond improved as it went on. Originally, Vanessa seemed like she barely cared about her dad, being either frustrated with his evil antics, embarrassed by his dorkiness, and even wanting to bust him for being a villain. Doof, meanwhile, was smothering, not always listening to his daughter, but still trying his best to make her happy. Eventually, these attempts actually ended up paying off, and Vanessa began to understand how much her father cared about her. From there, they slowly but surely grew closer, making their love for each other very well known. Vanessa is the most important person in Doof's life, to the point where he's willing to give up being evil entirely in the series finale. They don't always understand each other, but in spite of that, their relationship ended up being the most heartwarming in the show's history. Now we have Isabella and Buford. We all know the typical boys versus girls plots that a lot of kids shows like to do, and the dynamic between Isabella and Buford occasionally encompasses that. With Isabella being so determined and Buford being so hard-headed, it's not surprising that they would clash and sometimes compete with each other, like we see in the F games or when they play video games together. They can also push each other's buttons, like when Buford tries to steal Isabella's "what you doing" catchphrase. But while Isabella is unafraid to stand up to the bully, she's also willing to show sympathy, like when he loses his fish Biff. Buford has also grown to be more respectful of Isabella and her skills, allowing them to have less tension between them than they likely would have had if Buford hadn't been incorporated into the friend group. Now we have BFFs Candace and Stacy. Their friendship is about as textbook as you can get. They bond over typical teenage girls things like shopping, music groups, and romance. And more often than not, Stacy is supporting Candace however she can, from being emotional support to actually trying to help her bust her brothers and giving her physical assistance. While Candace usually overthinks and panics, Stacy keeps her grounded and gives her advice, or at least she tries to. Candace doesn't always listen, and that leads us to the biggest negative in their friendship. It can be kinda one-sided. Candace puts more personal things, such as busting her brothers or her romance with Jeremy, above hanging out with Stacy, which frustrates Stacy. To Candace's credit, she tries to make up for neglecting their friendship. While she sometimes gets distracted and accidentally ignores her best friend's needs, Candace cares about her and doesn't want to lose Stacy. In turn, Stacy, for the most part, doesn't mind helping her BFF and wants her to succeed and be happy. But even with this in mind, we have to acknowledge just how one-sided this friendship can be. Now we have Ferb and Isabella. Although Isabella may focus more on Phineas, that's not to say that she doesn't care about Ferb at all. They have a subtle but meaningful relationship, still being there for each other. Ferb especially does this, going so far as to comfort Isabella when she accidentally holds his hand, or listen to her vent when they're stuck on the island and Summer belongs to you. Isabella thanks him for the latter, so it doesn't come off as her just using him for emotional support. Ferb supports Isabella in other ways. He's more knowledgeable of her crush on Phineas and Phineas's, so he makes sure he gives him alone time and happy birthday Isabella, which Isabella definitely appreciates. It's a bummer, seeing that they don't interact as often as they probably should, but the moments they do share can be sweet. Next is Isabella and Phineas. They say that some of the best romances start with a solid friendship, and there's no better example of that than Phineas and Isabella. Even if it takes until the very end of the series for them to finally get together, the one-sided nature of Isabella's crush doesn't get nearly as uncomfortable as it does with Helga from Hey Arnold or Panini from Chowder. This allows them to be best friends and have a great relationship before any romance becomes a factor. The level of care they have for each other is outstanding. They will do anything for each other, from Isabella doing what she can to help Phineas with his plans, to Phineas designing an entire project around Isabella's needs, even if it's something as minor as getting rid of her hiccups. The only complaints we have is that sometimes Isabella, given how shy she is about her crush, isn't always the best communicator to Phineas, who, in turn, can be oblivious and either go overboard with what he's trying to do for Isabella or accidentally ignore what she actually wants. It's a minor flaw that will probably get hammered out in the future as they get closer, but it's still worth a mention. Just outside the top three is Candace, Phineas, and Ferb. Given how often Candace tries to bust her brothers and how harsh she can be towards them, it may be surprising to see this relationship so high. We feel, however, like the moments that solidify the positives are just that strong. Whereas exasperated as she may be with them, Candace never betrayed her brothers in a devastating manner, and almost always chooses to help them when they need her. She cares about them and doesn't want to see them get hurt. Despite her busting attempts, she also doesn't ever want to see them lose their creative spark and loves her brothers for who they are, no matter how annoying they may be. Phineas and Ferb, meanwhile, always extend an invite to their big sister, encouraging her to step out of her comfort zone and have some fun. Additionally, whenever they realize how much their fun may be causing their sister stress, they try to make up for it, like in the Disney Plus film Candace Against the Universe. They could do a better job of communicating, but when you get right down to it, we can say that the actions that we've seen from them and the support they give each other speak louder than words. The bronze medal of healthiness goes to Vanessa and Ferb. Ignoring the age gap, they follow a similar pattern to Phineas and Isabella in that they have a strong friendship before romance.
Hey, how's it going?
Though we'll admit, that isn't how things started off. At first, Vanessa saw Ferb as a random kid, even getting annoyed with his attempts to help her out in the episode The Necessary Roughness. She eventually notices that Ferb is helping her out of kindness, which she appreciates. They share another nice moment in Paris, where Ferb gives Vanessa advice that helps her issues regarding her father. Later, Ferb helps out at a Halloween party, and even helps give Vanessa a nice moment with her then boyfriend Monty. All these examples make it easy to ignore the whole crush on a teen thing, instead making it easy to enjoy and appreciate their friendship. Ferb does more for Vanessa than Vanessa does for Ferb, but her obvious appreciation and praise she gives him helps it feel less one-sided. The silver medal of healthiness goes to Perry and Doofenshmirtz. It's funny how two characters who are technically meant to be sworn enemies actually have one of the sweetest relationships around. While they do fight and are opposing forces, it's treated as part of their daily routine. It's their job, so they don't take all the traps and punches too personally. As such, whenever they're off the clock, Perry doesn't hesitate to help Doof out with his personal problems, sometimes protecting him, and more often than not, providing some emotional support. Doof cares a lot about Perry, often trusting him with his life, and seeing him as his closest friend, in spite of the fact that Perry is making it impossible for him to succeed, to the point where it's this bond that stops the impact of all of Duke's painful memories. In the episode, This Is Your Backstory, they spend time together, watch out for each other, and have a strong relationship that's both complicated yet incredibly simple. They may be each other's nemesis, but there is a lot of love. The gold medal of healthiness goes to Phineas and Ferb. Being the exact opposite of Doof and Roger, they are a team through thick and thin, being each other's inventing partner, best friend, and brother. While it may seem like Phineas bosses Ferb around, his tendency to be a leader is hardly a detriment to their relationship, given that Phineas is constantly giving Ferb credit for all the ways he helps bring Phineas's ideas to life, to the point of even naming several big projects after Ferb. Ferb, meanwhile, enjoys their daily projects just as much as Phineas does, and doesn't mind being the support, because he knows that his brother appreciates him. They never argue or fight, and even though Ferb is silent most of the time, Phineas not only understands him, but always asks him for his input, showing how well their communication is, ironically enough. They understand each other perfectly, helped by their strong bond, and as we said in the intro, the step aspect of their brotherhood is hardly even a factor as far as they're concerned. There's no better brother for them than each other, and it's this that earns them the title of healthiest relationship in the series. Although the inventions made by Phineas and Ferb usually take a starring role, there are two sides to every episode. And for nearly every plan or invention that the two brothers have, there's also an innator made by the not-so-evil Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz. But of all the Doofs and Naders, which ones are useful and which ones should have stayed on the drawing board? This is Dr. Doofenshmirtz and Naders, useless to useful. Much like with our previous video, Phineas and Ferb inventions, dumb to brilliant, we're only going to be covering the most notable and memorable of Doofs and Naders. Let us know if we missed any that you feel deserve a shout out. As always, we're going to be starting with the most useless innators and work our way up to the ones that could actually be used to take over the tri-state area. We're going to be starting with the category flawed and destructive. These innators aren't only useless, they're also dangerous and often cause pretty significant harm to Doof. From the first episode, we have the magnetism magnifier. This invention is really stupid, even by Doof's standards.
I haven't really worked out all the bugs yet.
According to him, he had wanted to use this invention to halt the Earth's rotation. He first covered the eastern seaboard in tinfoil, and then tried to use his giant magnet to pull it west. Of course, this failed miserably, and Doof got crushed by a giant ball of tinfoil. We felt we had to rank this Inator at the very bottom because not only did it fail miserably, Doof didn't even have a reason why he wanted to stop the Earth's rotation, other than seeing it as an evil thing to do. So not only was it pointless and stupid, but it also made for a painful lesson in magnetics. Next is the Now Who's Blinded by Sandinator. This Inator takes pettiness to a new level, wanting to finally get revenge on Boris, a bully that always kicks sand in his face. Doof creates this giant Inator to give Boris a taste of his own medicine.
Time to kick a little sand.
However, calling it an Inator is pretty generous, as they're just a giant mechanical boot and a giant bucket of sand. Besides that, it would take a lot of sand and money to fill this Inator once, but a gust is able to turn Doof's revenge back around on him when the wind blows sand back into his face. How ironic. It should also be noted that the Inator quickly falls apart, so as sweet as revenge might have seemed, this thing was just pointless all around. If Doof wanted to dump sand onto his old bully's house, he could have just used a dump truck, but hey, live and learn. Following that, we have the crudely named Poopinator. Don't worry, it's not what you think. Once again, trying to get revenge on his brother, Doof created this device to implant an image of the target into the brains of a flock of pigeons. Once the birds have their targets, well, we're sure you can all guess what happens next. This is possibly Doof's grossest scheme, although we acknowledge that it would be effective in ruining his brother's day. Unfortunately, that's its only purpose, as the Poopinator can only assign one target at a time. Doof probably couldn't use it to sick pigeons on the entire tri-state area. It's also not very evil. Mostly, it's just gross. With pigeons having fairly simple minds, it's also easy for Perry to turn the device around on Doof, leading to a very messy end for our favorite evil scientist. Lastly, we have the Deflatinator. You can't do much with the Deflatinator besides the obvious.
Deflating all the tires.
Although we're sure it'd be a nuisance to deal with, especially if you just bought new tires, the Deflatinator isn't exactly evil. It could be used in evil ways, though you'd have to be creative about it, but as it stands, Doof's only motive for using it is to force everyone in the tri-state area to come to him if they want something inflated. What keeps this Inator firmly in the flawed and destructive group is how badly it backfires, deflating the blimp that Doof was using to float above Danville. Thing is, as stupid as it may seem in hindsight, using a blimp was Doof's only option, given that a plane would be too fast and staying in his building would limit his range. Maybe if the weapon was more portable, Doof would have a shot at doing something truly noteworthy with it. As it stands though, it's pretty much a failure. The next category is the neat but impractical. These are the Inators that could be useful in the right context, but are pretty worthless in terms of threat or evil intent. First is the Age Accelerator Inator. Fun fact, Doof was originally going to quit being evil over this Inator, using it to pursue his cheese-making passions. Though this stinky Limburger recipe is delicious, the cheese itself takes 58.5 years to age. And like Doof said, who has that kind of time?
But who's got that kind of time?
Although impressive and useful, we had to put the Age Accelerator Inator towards the lower half of our list for just how few uses it actually has. While yes, it'd make being a cheesemaker a lot easier, not many other foods need to be aged. In fact, aging is detrimental to 90% of things and people. This is demonstrated at the end of the episode when Doof accidentally ages himself and is thus too old and tired to be much of a threat. So the Inator is risky to use. While we're sure cheese lovers would appreciate it, we just can't consider it practical enough to put any higher. Next is the Ball Gowninator. Doof wanted to use this device to turn himself into the manliest person in Danville, by comparison, by forcing everyone in the tri-state area to wear dresses. Although we can't exactly call the scheme evil, the Ball Gowninator is an impressive device given that it can create gorgeous dresses out of thin air. We're sure plenty of people would appreciate that, from shops that sell fancy dresses to people who maybe can't afford a nice ball gown. We still have to call it impractical in terms of its evilness, and we will acknowledge that it isn't something that could be used daily since ball gowns aren't necessarily daily attire, but we still think it's a pretty neat gadget.
The Ball Gowninator.
Of course, we couldn't forget about Norm the Robot. Norm was originally created to destroy Perry, while also symbolizing how mankind is the biggest threat to the platypus species.
The enemy of the platypus is man.
After this scheme fails, Norm actually sticks around, becoming Doof's assistant. Though he runs on squirrel power and tends to make mistakes, Norm is useful in his assistant role. He's helpful, strong, has numerous abilities, and is almost always in a chipper mood, though he can occasionally be sassy. And he can still be a threat, given that he once almost destroyed the tri-state area while Doof was out on jury duty. With all of his abilities and how useful he is as an assistant, Norm could be helpful in certain circumstances. However, we have to admit that you wouldn't really need a giant robot man often. That, combined with all the maintenance that would need to be done to keep him and his abilities running smoothly, causes Norm to still qualify as impractical. Finishing up the somewhat impractical innators, we have the chicken replace-inator. If we're being honest, this is a very, very silly invention. Replacing things? That has some merit, but replacing these things or people with the nearest chicken? You have to wonder how that would ever be useful. According to Doof, the Inator was meant to replace his brother Roger's second straight Mayor of the Year award with a chicken the moment he receives it.
My goody two-shoes brother's getting an award.
This will in turn make everyone laugh at Roger because of how inherently funny chickens are. You gotta love the pettiness. The Inator can also later replace things with the farthest chicken, in case you ever needed that option. But while this Inator would be impractical in day-to-day life, we felt we had to give it a mention as well as a decent ranking, given that it's what saves the day twice in Candace Against the Universe. Next, we have the category Somewhat Threatening. We're now moving into the Inators that actually have a chance of doing something evil or being useful for a scheme. Starting this category is the Yodel Inator. Who doesn't like a good yodel? With this special cowboy hat, Doof was able to improve his singing voice.
Yodel, 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 obey me.
He had the crowd under his control with his hit single, Yodel, Odel, Obey Me. And honestly, we can't blame the crowd for wanting to obey him. What can we say? It's a catchy song. Had it not been for Perry's interference, Doof probably would have had an easy time gaining a fan base that he can then turn into his army or into his servants. After all, we all know how passionate music stands can get about their favorite singers. What keeps this Inator from going any higher, however, is how easily it was taken out of commission, with Agent P only needing to knock it off Doof's head in order to reveal to the audience how much of a fake he was. Had Doof prepared better, maybe the scheme could have lasted longer. As it stands, it just barely makes it into the upper half of our list. We're putting the termite controlling helmet next. There are lots of things out there that are made out of wood, and termites can be a nightmare for any homeowner. So when Doof was able to temporarily control an army of termites with his helmet, it definitely bumped up his threat level. We should mention that Doof only wanted to get rid of all the wood in Danville, so he can then make a fortune off selling aluminum siding.
Then everyone will have to buy aluminum siding from me.
That's not evil, though it is a decent business strategy. Still, the helmet is impressive in just how well it's able to control the termites, giving them plenty of guidance and direction. The only not so great thing about the helmet is the reversal function, which causes the termites to attack Doof instead of obeying him. We're not sure why Doof would install this function in the first place, but hey, it's Doof, so we're not all that surprised. Next is the Invisinator. We're sure that most people have wished to have the power of invisibility at some point, but while this Inator grants that power, it does it in a fairly malicious way. When cupcake selling season for the Fireside Girls comes around, Doof decides that instead of feeling guilty for trying to ignore the Fireside Girls whenever they come around to sell their treats, he's going to turn them invisible, so he doesn't have to look at them.
I'm just gonna shoot them with the ray so I don't have to look at them.
Of course, someone who isn't as oblivious as Doof could use this for much more nefarious purposes. Additionally, for some people, the threat of forever being invisible is major. What brings this threat down is that the invisibility isn't permanent, and that getting hit by the Invisinator again will make you visible. But in an ironic way, this makes the machine more useful in that it gets rid of a potential downside, which will make it easier for a villain to use it for their own gain. Not that Doof seems to notice, he just wants to avoid shelling out cash for Fireside cupcakes. But we can appreciate it for its potential. The Inator also has a disintegration mode, which definitely bumps up its threat level. Next is the holiday-ruining Naughty Inator. For kids who celebrate Christmas, a machine that can stop Santa from delivering presents can be threatening. Additionally, it isn't often that a villain is able to succeed in ruining a holiday, albeit temporarily.
I don't hate Christmas!
In this case, Doof made it seem like the entire population of the tri-state area had been naughty. An impressive feat, making this Inator noteworthy. While it is evil and threatening, this Inator wouldn't be able to do much outside of the holiday season. We learn later on in the episode that it had been Santa who created the blueprints for the Inator as part of his own scheme to grant Doof's, as well as Phineas and Ferb's, Christmas wishes. That alone brings it down, and that it was never ruining anything. It was all part of Santa's plan. Still, the idea of the Inator itself has its merit, and Doof was still able to use it effectively. So, credit where it's due. We had to give a mention to the Make Up Your Mind Inator. This one is simple. After being annoyed by people who can't make up their mind, Doof made an Inator to hone in on these people and destroy them. Destroying people for a minor flaw? That's messed up.
Ferb and I can't seem to make up our minds.
However, we can't say much about this Inator because it's never activated. Once Perry realizes that this Inator directly threatens Phineas and Ferb, he takes Doof out almost immediately, and the two spend the rest of the episode trying to free themselves from their any flat surface magnet belts. However, with the surprisingly dark intentions and implications that this Inator has, we felt that we couldn't really leave it off the list, even if we never see it in action. In our final category, we have the useful and totally evil. Not only could these Inators win the day for evil, but they also have a dark side. We're starting this category with a Devilishinator, not to be confused with a De-Evolutionator. So we've already touched on a couple of Doof's mind-controlling Inators. In case it wasn't obvious, he really wants to be in control. But we feel that the Devilishinator is the best and most successful example. With this helmet, Doof controlled Perry completely. Usually Perry's able to find some way out of being controlled. In this instance, however, he acts as Doof's accomplice throughout most of the episode. Doof forced him to steal a shopping cart, slap himself, and skip down the street, much to the platypus's annoyance.
Why are you hitting yourself? Why are you hitting yourself?
Although Doof doesn't use the Devilishinator to its fullest potential, being more focused on picking up his daughter Vanessa for a party, in competent hands, this Inator can be useful and evil. Speaking of hands, this Inator also leads to an awesome and memorable moment for Doof later on, when Perry uses it to help Doof with DJing. We had to give it extra points for that. Up next, we have Shrinkspheria. We all have those little annoyances in our lives that we wish could go away. With this Inator, Doof is able to do just that. He explains that all he has to do is enter the name of something he hates, and Shrinkspheria hones in on its molecular structure, shrinking it into a teeny tiny speck so small he never has to see it again. It's unclear what the range of Shrinkspheria is, but even if it only shrinks things within the tri-state area, it could still cause damage. Imagine what would happen if this fell into more evil hands.
So goodbye to you, Perry the Platypus.
Since it could shrink anything, everyone would be in danger. We don't see a reverse button, so it's unclear if the things that are shrunk can be unshrunk. Thankfully, this Inator isn't all-powerful. Messing with its antenna can cause it to fail, and it can still be blown up. For this reason, we can't put it up any higher. Next is the Platyproliferator Inator. We all know the evil clone trope, but Doof takes it to another level. With the Platyproliferator Inator, he creates several clones of Perry and has them commit crimes all over Danville to frame the agent and get him out of the way. These crimes include stealing money, running from police officers, and littering. Doof also uses these clones to fight Perry, hoping to outmatch him once and for all. As he says, sometimes you have to fight fire with fire.
By fire, I mean Perry the Platypus.
Thankfully, Perry sucks all the clones back into the Inator, blowing it up. You have to wonder though, could Doof possibly recreate this Inator and make evil clones of other people? It'd certainly be an effective evil plan. In a list of evil intentions, a turn everything evil Inator is going to rank fairly high. When Doof realizes how much more useful to him Perry would be as an ally, he uses a turn everything evil Inator to turn Perry evil. This Inator goes beyond the standard mind control or hypnosis Inator, in that it completely changes the personality of the person it hits, turning them evil in an instant. As such, it's likely harder to fight off than some Inator or music-induced trance. Additionally, it turns previously not sentient things into evil sentient creatures, like with the gelatin monster that it creates. Honestly, any other villain would have a lot of uses for this, just as long as they had good aim. Next is the Delovinator Satellite. This one is memorable. Doof has never been lucky when it comes to romance, and in this episode, he nearly takes out his frustrations on the entire world.
We'll eliminate the feeling of love!
As Doof explains, his Delevenator satellite eliminates the feeling of love throughout the entire tri-state area with just a push of a button. Even Perry seems concerned about this invention. He may be able to fight off a lot of things, but he can't stop a huge city-spanning beam from a satellite. Although Doof never uses it, finally finding love with a woman who enjoys evil, we still see the effects of the satellite when it crashes and hits his date. Just as Doof promised, the woman is left without any feelings of love, stating that she feels nothing. We're not sure how this Inator could be used to take over the tri-state area per se, but with how harsh and evil it is, we feel that doesn't matter. As far as we're concerned, the implications and effectiveness earn it a high spot. Finishing off our list, we have the Repulsinator. It could be argued that this Inator was Doof's most successful evil Inator, even if it was also the most insulting. Doof created this device to turn anyone who shot with it repulsive. As it turns out, repulsive equates to a mindless zombified Doofenshmirtz.
You freaks!
It's harsh, but Doof takes this insult in stride, and soon enough, all of Danville is taken over by these zombie Doofs. It only needs to be fired once, and once someone is repulsive, they only need to touch someone to make them repulsive too. Several characters get transformed, and at one point, the Doof zombies shut down the water, phone, and power lines in Danville, making it reminiscent of a zombie horror movie. Eventually, Doof gets annoyed with their mindlessness and decides that this Inator was too successful, and that more than one Doof is just too much. So he helps Phineas, Ferb, and the gang come up with a cure for the Repulsinator's effects. Had it not been for this decision, Doof might have ruled an entire world filled with only himself. Not exactly a pleasant thought. Throughout its 189 episodes, you can always count on one thing while watching Phineas and Ferb: that the brothers will come up with a really cool invention, and that it'll get broken by the end of the episode. This is Phineas and Ferb Inventions, Dumb to Brilliant. There are a lot of days of summer vacation, and thereby also a lot of Phineas and Ferb inventions. So this video will only cover some of the most memorable. Let us know if you agree. We'll be starting with the dumbest and work our way to the inventions even Einstein would be impressed by. Our first category is the cool but already invented. Here, we'll cover some really cool inventions. Unfortunately, they've already been invented long before Phineas and Ferb got around to making them. First, we have Swinter. This idea came to Phineas when he realized that it would be cool to have snow in July, and so they created a hybrid between the two seasons.
Why have snow in the winter when it's too cold to enjoy it?
Although fun, Swinter pretty much exists in the real world. Lots of places have snow and a warm climate at the same time, and so we'll have to rank this at the very bottom. Sorry guys. Our next invention is the roller coaster. Roller coasters were a frequent invention in the show, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll only be covering the one from the very first episode. Although roller coasters might sound boring, the boys make this one a little more exciting by including a pit full of fake snakes and a bucket of mud. The roller coaster also spans across the entire city, and although not intentional, takes them to space, where they don't need space helmets for some reason. Weird. Phineas and Ferb also show that they know more than just engineering, by marketing their roller coaster with posters at the local shop and by getting building permits. Despite all of this, it's still just a roller coaster. After watching a documentary about Howard Hughes and his plane, the Spruce Goose, Phineas and Ferb aim to beat his record of the world's longest wingspan. However, they make their plane, the Paper Pelican, out of paper, not wood. With a little help from their friends and the Fireside Girls, the plane beats the record by 1 inch. And that's not the only thing going for the Paper Pelican.
Co-pilot's instruments?
Check.
Unlike its predecessor, the Paper Pelican also has passengers, a full staff, and grub, even though it's just insignificant peanuts. Sorry, Buford. We can't rank the Paper Pelican any higher because it had to do a water landing, making the plane dissolve and only lasting a single flight. When Candace asked Phineas and Ferb if they could do something normal for once, like a lemonade stand, they take her idea and run with it. They don't just set up a lemonade stand. They create a giant robot in their backyard that can make the lemonade for them. An increase in demand also resulted in Phineas and Ferb creating a franchise of lemonade stores called P&F Lemonade. This is impressive. It's hard running a store, never mind a franchise. They must have gone through the trouble of buying locations, hiring employees, and creating a system for getting the lemonade to the stores. We can't rank this invention any higher, as the franchise ran out of lemonade in a single day when the giant robot malfunctioned due to lemon juice in a paper cut.
Go home, you losers! We're dry!
I guess robots can experience pain. Wanting to see the star their dad bought for them online, Phineas and Ferb built not one, but 2 rockets capable of going to space. Seeing as rockets usually take several years, millions of dollars, and sophisticated machines to build, making 2 in a day is impressive. The rockets have several faults. First of all, one of the rockets can't launch, resulting in them having to jumpstart it, which can't be a good sign. One of the rockets also runs out of fuel in the middle of space. Again, not great. Lastly, Candace's rocket is ruined by an asteroid shower. However, that might be Candace's fault. When Candace asks her brothers to build a backyard fort better than the neighboring kids Thaddeus and Thor's, she's disappointed with the basic result. However, we all know that Phineas and Ferb are gonna have something else up their sleeves. With the press of a button, the fort rises to be 10 stories high, each with its own unique design. The fort also has everything you can ever need, like a main entrance with marble flooring, a pool with a gigantic slide, a telescope, a terracotta army room, a jet engine wind tunnel room, an orchestra, and a bowling alley.
Nice going. You broke their brains.
And who's to say that the fort doesn't include its own rockets, roller coasters, or its very own P&F lemonade stand? The possibilities are endless. Next is the gray area. This category is reserved for the inventions that are full worthy of their title, seeing as they've never been done before, but that still aren't brilliant. Our first entry in this category is the mix and mingle machine that Phineas and Ferb make to cheer up Candace after Jeremy cancels their date. The machine might be best described as an in-person dating app. It quickly spins around and lets you talk to new people for a limited amount of time before it starts spinning again. It's in the name. You mangle, then you mix. The mix and mingle machine also gets a few extra points for its emergency ejection option, which lets everyone in the machine free.
A simple ice cream cone might have been more effective.
It's an important detail, and we all know that Phineas and Ferb aren't always great with the details. Next on the list, we have the Anti-Gravity Fun Launcher, a machine that lets whoever is in it float in zero gravity. The machine might sound revolutionary, but as the name suggests, it's just for fun. We're sure that Phineas and Ferb could have done a lot more with this invention, hence the ranking. After drinking a couple of boring smoothies with their friends, Phineas and Ferb create the state-of-the-matter transfer device in order to make more exotic smoothies. The device smoothifies anything in front of it, including chicken, a romantic dinner for 2, and Candace.
What does it feel like?
It feels like you're in big trouble.
The device is simple, but it works as intended. We've also ranked it a little higher on our list because of its option to turn things back to its solid form. When Baljeet is concerned that he's losing his mental edge, Phineas and Ferb construct the Cerebral Stimulator Hat, also known as a Brain Booster, to help him gain it back. The Brain Booster is a cool device, and Phineas and Ferb could probably make even better inventions than the ones on this list if they were wearing it. We have to rank the Brain Booster on the lower part of our list, seeing as it backfires when Baljeet, who's wearing the hat, becomes a threat to humanity by bringing Earth's atmosphere to the moon. We're sure Phineas and Ferb could make some changes to the hat to make it less detrimental, but until then, it's in the gray area.
You tried to eliminate the atmosphere one time.
Next on our list is the Molecular Separator, a machine that splits something into its component parts.
I don't want to taste 2 things at one time. That's unnatural.
The machine could, for example, split a mule into a horse and a donkey, and shampoo conditioner into shampoo and conditioner. The molecular separator could do a lot for mankind, but we had to rank it a little lower on the list because we don't know much about it. Hearing that the famed comet Kermelian is going to pass the tri-state area, Phineas and Ferb create the Observatory to watch the comet. However, as expected, the Observatory isn't just an ordinary observatory. It also includes a laser show, with the grand finale where Phineas and Ferb laser their faces onto the comet so that they can show their grandchildren one day.
You guys put your face on a comet? Ooh, I'm telling Mom!
The invention is selfish, but let's be honest, it's cool. In anticipation of the Russian astronaut Sergei Kushnerov's birthday, Phineas and Ferb create the stratospheric ionizer to wish him a happy birthday. The stratospheric ionizer is simple. The boys make a microphone, and whatever you say into that microphone turns into a message displayed in space. This machine eventually saves Sergei and everyone else on board his spaceship when Candace tells her mom to turn around. The message is then displayed in space, warning Sergei of a dangerous obstacle coming their way.
Those boys, they have saved our lives!
The stratospheric ionizer is a unique invention, but communication between space stations and Earth already exists. We don't see how the invention could be used other than warning and wishing astronauts happy birthday. The invention is selfless, and we'll give it extra points for that. After getting ripped off by the fake X-ray glasses they ordered online, the boys make their own fully functional ones. To do this, they dip a pair of glasses into super concentrate carrot juice, which then allows them to see through objects and people, just like an X-ray machine. Not only do they make X-ray glasses, but they also make an ordering system so that people can get a pair of their own. Furthermore, Phineas and Ferb use their own glasses to help the people in their neighborhood. Again, we appreciate the selflessness. Our next invention is the shrinking submarine that the boys invent to travel inside Isabella's dog Pinky to retrieve Isabella's sash. However, the submarine ends up in Candace when she eats the cheese sandwich prepared for the dog.
That's creepy on so many levels.
Although submarines already exist, shrinking ones do not, hence us ranking it in the gray area. Furthermore, the shrinking submarine is two inventions in one, the submarine and the shrinking ray, and that has to count for something. When bad weather prevents Isabella and her troop from earning their achievement patches, Phineas and Ferb take things into their own hands by creating a biosphere. Not only can the biosphere change into different climates, it also includes everything you need to make the climates realistic, like flora and fauna. The biosphere could have a lot of uses in the real world, and this is also where we get the iconic Set the Record Straight song, so extra points for that. The next invention on our list is the spring that the boys use to hurl the whale Mingo planet away from Earth.
Based on my calculations, the planet will be here by midnight!
The spring might not be as cool looking or sounding as some of the other entries, but it's effective at what it's trying to do. It also saved 2 planets and mankind. Finally, we have the brilliant inventions. Inventions that could change the world if only they didn't get ruined by the end of the episode. Our first invention in this category is the interactive video game. Inspired by one of Buford's video games called Jump and Duck, the boys make their own game with multiple levels, enemies, arenas, and even a final boss. And it gets better, as the game allows whoever is playing to be transported into the game and experience the challenges for themselves. However, there are still some faults with this invention, making us have to rank it last in the brilliant category. When first entering the game, there's no way out, making it so that you have to finish the entire game before exiting. The final boss transports to the real world for an extra challenge after you've defeated it.
He looks like a nice guy.
Not cool. We also don't know what happens when you lose your 5 given lives, but no matter what it is, it can't be good. Next is the animal translator. This one is self-explanatory. Animals talk into a microphone, and the device translates their moos and purrs into common English.
Aren't you a little young for interspecial communication?
The device is also seen working on basically every animal in Danville, including squirrels, birds, and even lions. Why are there lions on the loose in Danville again? Anyway, Phineas and Ferb use the animal translator to help the animals in Danville understand the human world and our devices like TVs, and they also help the owners understand their animals' needs. We do have to rank it a little lower on the list because we never got to hear what Perry had to say. Poor guy. When visiting the museum with their family, Phineas and Ferb spot an unfinished time machine on display. Naturally, they decide to fix this machine and get it into working order. They then travel back to prehistoric times with Candace, where a T-Rex steps on the machine, destroying it. It's here that we begin to see some problems with Phineas and Ferb's plans. First, they don't have any way to travel back to modern times once the machine is ruined, which seems like an oversight. By a strike of sheer luck, however, they're able to tell Vanessa and the Fireside Girls that they're stuck.
Please turn to the time travel section of your Fireside Girls handbook.
Vanessa and the others then build another time machine according to Phineas and Ferb's plans that they just left for some reason. But there's still troubles, as the machine requires electricity, something that obviously didn't exist in 300 million BC. Again, oversight. From the time machine to the transporter. The transporter, though, isn't as self-explanatory. It doesn't work like the other transporters we see in movies, where you step into one of them and it transports you to another transporter in a different location. No, it works by putting a picture of something or someone onto a screen, then the something or someone will zap onto the machine.
Oops, I forgot to install the fly filter.
The machine works great too, with it transporting everything from an apple to Grandpa Reg's feet. Yikes. Other than the surgical removal, the machine could be really useful in real life. I mean, it's a lot better than sitting on a cramped airplane for hours. You know, I'd risk the amputation. Barely cheated from the bronze medal, we have the portal to Mars. It's similar to the transporter in that it takes you from one place to another. The portal to Mars doesn't work as flawlessly, and the portal somehow breaks down the second Candace has entered through it.
Candace is probably laughing about it as we speak.
Phineas and Ferb then have to fix the machine, which shows us that the portal to Mars also can transform itself into a portal to Venus, prehistoric times, and a portal to the future. Which makes the time machine useless, by the way. The portal to Mars is a brilliant invention, and it would save us a lot of time, money, and effort as we get ready to send humans. However, due to its faults, we can't give it that precious metal. The invention we can give the bronze medal to is the mind machine. The mind machine was originally created by Phineas and Ferb to cure Irving's fear of the color lavender and Baljeet's fear of contractions. Nonetheless, the machine can also do a bunch of other stuff, like helping Candace remember how the gift Jeremy got for her looked. The mind machine might not sound as cool as some of the other inventions on this list, but the mind machine could have a lot of uses in real life. Seeing as it can cure fears, the machine could probably be used in therapy and save us a lot of hours of talking. It can also be used for remembering. And who doesn't need help remembering where they left their keys? I do. Taking the silver medal, we have the supercomputer that Phineas and Ferb build to ask what the nicest thing they can do for their mother. The supercomputer analyzes data from all events in the tri-state area and comes with super accurate predictions based on that data.
What is the nicest thing we can do for Mom today?
We don't think we need to tell you that the supercomputer would be really useful in real life. For everything from medicine research to telling you the answers to your math homework, it could probably also tell you where you left those keys without you having to go through your entire subconsciousness. After all, its data is complete, its logic infallible. And the gold medal goes to Finadroids and Furbots. After realizing that summer was beginning to end and they still had a lot of unfinished plans, Phineas and Ferb created the Finadroids and Furbots, collectively known as Brobots, to execute all their plans for them. This worked great, to say the least. And the Brobots didn't just finish all their projects, they also started new ones and built their own overpriced coffee stand. So 90s.
And that one's having trouble falling asleep.
And even though the Brobots only have two modes, work and dance, they're still incredibly effective and could probably finish all the inventions on this list in a matter of minutes, and even create their own. They probably make more coffee too.